The disgraced financier Bernie Madoff dies at the age of 82. Madoff, infamous for spearheading the world's largest pyramid scheme, was serving a 150-year jail sentence in the United States. Drawing America's longest war to an end, the White House prepares to announce the withdrawal of the last US troops from Afghanistan. And Serbia becomes one of the fastest vaccinators in Europe. With 30% of people there now inoculated, we report on the rollout among Belgrade's homeless population. Those are the international news headlines on France 24 this hour. I'm Nadia Massi in Paris. Thanks very much for being with us. And we start then with the news that the disgraced Wall Street financier Bernie Madoff has died in prison at the age of 82. Madoff was the mastermind behind the worst financial scam in history, which defrauded tens of thousands of people around the world of billions of dollars. Now, he died while serving a 150-year sentence in a North Carolina jail. To talk a bit more about him, we're joined on set now by our business editor, Kate Moody. Kate, remind us a bit who Madoff was and what he actually did.
Well, he was a Wall Street broker who founded his own investment firm back in 1960 at the age of 22, and he rose to become one of the most influential names in American finance. His success, though, was revealed to be largely a front. He was convicted of defrauding as many as 37,000 people across 136 countries over several decades. He allegedly ripped off more than $65 billion. His victims included the rich and famous from Wall Street to Hollywood, but also thousands of families, teachers, mechanics. He was turned in by his two sons in late 2008, really in the midst of the financial crisis. A year later, he was sentenced to 150 years in prison, and he was ordered to hand over $170 billion to those that he had cheated. People who testified at his trial said that their lives had been ruined. Many of them had lost their entire life savings or their pensions. The judge described him as having committed extraordinarily evil crimes. As of mid-2020, trustees had been able to recover about $14 billion for his scammed customers.
And talk us through the basics of that Ponzi scheme that he was enacting.
Well, it's an expression that really exploded into common parlance when he was arrested. It's essentially a pyramid scheme. Investors pay in a certain sum, expecting a return on their initial investment through trades on the stock market. Instead of trading it, though, Madoff deposited most of that money in a bank account, and then he paid off new customers with funds coming in from earlier ones. He himself pocketed a huge portion of that to fund an increasingly lavish lifestyle for his family. Accounting statements showing huge returns for his company were entirely fake. Now, a scheme like that can keep going on until it collapses, until someone claims a large sum that can't actually be repaid back, or until it's exposed. The scams are named for Charles Ponzi, a fraudster from the early 1900s, but as one specialist says, these could easily be renamed now as Madoff schemes.
All right, thank you very much indeed for talking us through a little of what Bernie Madoff did there. Kate Moody for us on the programme. Now, on what will be the 20th anniversary of the September 11th attacks, the United States will withdraw all of its troops from Afghanistan. President Biden is to make the formal announcement later today, but this morning his most senior diplomat, Antony Blinken, has been holding meetings with NATO leaders in Brussels to coordinate the pullout of troops. Here's Blinken speaking this morning.
After the United States was attacked on 9/11, together we went into Afghanistan to deal with those who attacked us and to make sure that Afghanistan would not again become a haven for terrorists who might attack any of us. And together we have achieved the goals that we set out to achieve. And now it is time to bring our forces home. We will work very closely together in the weeks and months ahead on a safe, deliberate, and coordinated withdrawal of our forces from Afghanistan. But even as we do that, our commitment to Afghanistan, to its future, will remain.
Well, let's talk a little more then about that planned withdrawal of US troops with our foreign affairs commentator, Douglas Herbert. Doug, we know that Biden agonised for years about this issue of troop withdrawal, long actually before he became president. Why is he taking this decision now?
Look, in a nutshell, because he believes that the reasons that brought American forces into Afghanistan 20 years ago in 2001, after the 9/11 attacks, essentially no longer exist on the ground. He doesn't believe that there is really any returns right now from a continuing American presence after trillions of dollars spent in the country, thousands of lives lost. He just does not believe that it's going to accomplish much to remain any longer. But like you said, it's been an anguishing decision for him, and he is for many years been in favor of reducing the presence in Afghanistan, even under Obama, especially under Obama, to just a minimal counterterrorism force. He didn't want a big presence there. But the fact of the matter is, it is a decision that carries with it amazing, giant moral and ethical and political dimensions. And it's almost you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. On both sides of this argument, both Republicans and Democrats, on both sides, you can't just say it's one party or the other. There are arguments for why America absolutely needs and should stay and keep troops on the ground, and arguments for why absolutely, after 20 years of a costly, what some say senseless war, time to get out. Joe Biden has an enormous self-imposed agenda. He sees emerging threats now as priorities from China, from Russia, from Iran, from other corners of the earth. And let's not forget, he has a gargantuan domestic agenda trying to fix the economy, trying to fix American society, and trying to right racial injustices and inequities. You could say he has his hands full. Afghanistan, for him, just simply wasn't the priority that it has been in years past.
Well, US troops will be out, according to this plan, on the 11th of September. Yeah. But what happens on September 12th?
It could be disastrous if you're to believe a lot of, that's not me saying it, that's the assessments from a lot in the intelligence community, basically saying you have a situation right now where the Taliban right now controls maybe half the country. The Taliban actually say they control 70% to 3/4 of the country. It depends which side you believe here. You have a scenario in which once those troops are gone, still better equipped and better trained Afghan forces, but still not well enough equipped and well enough trained Afghan forces, could be up against it and could be overwhelmed by a resurgent Taliban. You still have a peace deal in the making, which is far from getting signed and done. Can you trust the Taliban to make good on its commitments on women's rights, on girls' rights, on basically not letting Al-Qaeda and other groups run rampant across the country? A lot of people are very skeptical about that, and they say that Afghan security situation is going to go from bad to worse, and the government, already hard pressed, could be pressed to the verge of collapse.
All right, Douglas Herbert, thank you for your analysis. Very interesting indeed. Now, in the race to get Europe vaccinated, Serbia is emerging as something of a continental frontrunner, thanks in part to vaccines from China and from Russia. 30% of the Serbian population has now been vaccinated against coronavirus. And as of last week, those sleeping rough are now eligible for the jab. Our reporters in Belgrade have spent some time with the Red Cross team there as they vaccinate some of the most vulnerable people in the city.
54-year-old Dragan has been homeless for a decade. He lives in a shelter in Belgrade and gets by on casual work. Today he's being vaccinated against COVID-19, thanks to City Social Services, the healthcare system and the Red Cross.
Materijalna situacija mi je teška, iza nas je zima bila, radim fizičke poslove. Moram da pohvalim Crveni krst jer sam obavio vakcinaciju čak bez dokumenata.
With 30% of the population already vaccinated, Serbia leads Europe in anti-COVID vaccination. Belgrade has launched a vaccination campaign for the homeless. The first group of 17 were given the jab last week.
Dolaze na drugu dozu, na zakazanu kako je prema vakcini koju je primio, pošto nema telefona kome možemo poslati SMS poruku.
In this Red Cross shelter, homeless people can eat, take showers and receive clean clothes. This is the ideal place for the Red Cross team to inform users about the different vaccines.
Mi I dalje nastavljamo da pozivamo naše korisnike da se vakcinišu I imamo I sada zainteresovane.
But many are still reluctant to be vaccinated. Dragan isn't one of them.
Odbojnost je proizašla iz neke propagande da ne valja ta vakcina, međutim, dok je nauka to pronašla, po meni valja.
A third of those using Red Cross services have shown interest in the vaccines. But not all homeless people come to the Red Cross. It's difficult to predict how long it will take to protect all of them against COVID-19.
Let's get some football news now on the programme. Our sports editor Simon Harding is on set with me. Hello, Simon.
Hi, Nadia.
Champions League returning this evening. Two pretty open games. Let's start with Liverpool against Real Madrid, and it's something of a mountain to climb for Jurgen Klopp's side.
The Reds trail 3-1 after their first leg in Madrid, so it's not going to be easy for them. But we've seen crazy things happen at Anfield, the historic stadium for Liverpool. They're going to have to score twice, at least twice, if they want to win the match. They did have that all-important away goal, which was scored courtesy of Mo Salah, which means that if they win 2-0, then they will go home for a place in the semi-finals. Real Madrid, who of course had Vinicius and Asensio to thank for a brilliant performance where they outclassed Liverpool, it must be said, in that quarter-final first leg. But Madrid are still without Sergio Ramos and Rafael Varane in central defence for them, whereas Lucas Vazquez, who had a brilliant game at right back, is also injured, Nadia. So it is going to be a very interesting tie. On Liverpool's side, Gomez, Van Dijk, Henderson, who have been missing for most of the season, are still out. But of course, they do have that fantastic trio up front of Mo Salah, Sadio Mane and Roberto Firmino. But Jurgen Klopp is going to have to find a way to try and get those three to click, which they obviously didn't in that first leg match.
Yeah. What about the other game, though? Dortmund and Manchester City.
Yeah, really open tie, much more open. Probably the most open tie of these quarterfinals because Dortmund scored a very late goal through Marco Reus to get an important score in Manchester, even though Man City won the game. Foden and Bernardo Silva with the goals in that one. But it does mean that if Dortmund just win it 1-0, if they score just one goal and City are unable to find any answer, then it will be the Germans who go through to the semi-finals. And of course, they have the threat of Erling Haaland, who's perhaps one of the most exciting football players at the moment. Manchester City, though, do remain the favourites in this tie because of how well they're playing and particularly how good they are in the Premier League. It will be an opportunity for Pep Guardiola, who actually put some pressure on his players just before the game, saying, if we don't win the title, if I don't win the title as a manager, then it will be considered a failure. And we all know Pep Guardiola, how many titles he's won throughout the years. So it's big words coming from him. Both those games, Nadia, kick off at 9 p.m. Cracking evening of football to come.
Simon Harding, thank you very much indeed. More sports now. Let's have a look at what's happening with the Olympic Games that are now just 100 days away. Now, the organisers in Tokyo are struggling, though, to deal with a surge in coronavirus cases there, as well as some delays in Japan's vaccination programme. Yuka Roya has more.
Buddhist monks blow shell horns to pray for successful games, as a new Olympic Rings monument was installed on top of Mount Takao. With 100 days to go before the start of the sporting festival, delayed for a year because of the coronavirus pandemic, the governor of Tokyo hopes the host city can turn the misfortune into a blessing.
心に残るそのコロナとの戦いを超えてですね、開催できる大会にしていく。
Reflecting the harsh reality, however, the game's official mascot, which Koike unveiled at the City Hall, will not be displayed to the public for now to avoid drawing crowds. Japan is seeing a fresh spike in infections. The country's second city, Osaka, this week was hit with a record number of daily new cases, topping 1,000 for the first time. Runners for the Olympic torch relay had to run through empty parks. Cases have also surged in the capital, Tokyo, and elsewhere. As the pandemic continues to rage across the world, organisers made the unprecedented decision to bar foreign spectators from coming into the country. Yet the International Olympic Committee remains confident.
So the next 100 days will be about refining all the details and testing, training the teams. This is what we're going to do.
This is a crucial time for the organisers to drum up public support. But with less than 1% of the population vaccinated so far, a majority of the Japanese public is still against holding the Games altogether.
Those are our top stories from the France 24 newsroom. Thanks very much for watching.